In the quiet suburbs of North Epping, Sydney, a single night would shatter one of the city's most beloved families. 5 members of the same household, including 2 young boys, were brutally murdered in their own beds. A crime so violent, so calculated, that the word heinous barely scratches the surface. It remains one of Australia's darkest cases, not only for the brutality, but also for the betrayal at its heart. Min Lin and his wife, Yun Lin, known to friends as Lily, were more than successful business owners. They were devoted parents, loving partners, and pillars of their community. After migrating from China as students, Min and Lily built a life together in Australia. Their love grew into a family: a 15-year-old daughter, Brenda, and 2 sons, Henry, aged 12, and Terry, just 9. Their home on Boundary Road was filled with warmth and routine. Henry loved sports and played soccer with his friends at school. Terry, the youngest, adored his siblings, often copying everything Henry did and looking up to Brenda as his second mother. Brenda herself was a bright student, deeply attached to her parents, and known among her classmates for her kindness. Min and Lily worked tirelessly to provide the best life possible, with Min running the Epping Central News Agency, opened in 2002. The store thrived, bringing in more than $1 million annually. Customers trusted Min, neighbors respected him, and the Lin family was admired as the image of hard work rewarded. But in July of 2009, the ordinary rhythms of their family life were shattered. On the evening of July 17th, Min and Lily gathered with their children and relatives for dinner at the home of Min's sister, Kathy. It was a warm, familial evening, filled with laughter and the casual comfort of family ties. Brenda, however, was absent, away on a school trip that weekend. Her absence, as fate would have it, would save her life. After dinner, the family returned to their home on Boundary Road. Henry had been invited by his grandmother to stay at her place that night, but he chose instead to sleep at home, eager to play badminton with his Uncle Robert the following morning. Small, innocent choices, ones that no one could know would decide who lived and who died. That night, Min went out as usual to deliver newspapers. By the early hours, the house was quiet, its occupants asleep. But in that silence, a figure moved with terrifying intent. Between 2 a.m. and 5:30 a.m., the Lin household became a slaughterhouse. By morning, alarm bells began to ring in the community. The news agency, which normally opened before dawn, remained shuttered. Piles of unsorted newspapers lay stacked outside the shop. Concerned customers began making calls, worried about Min's unusual absence. Kathy, uneasy, decided to check on her brother. She arrived at the Boundary Road home, accompanied by her husband, Robert. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house looked undisturbed at first. But when Kathy climbed the stairs, she walked into a nightmare. In the master bedroom, Lily lay sprawled on the floor, her head bludgeoned, her body broken. In another room, Irene, Min's sister-in-law who lived with the family, was slumped lifeless against her bed. The horror deepened in the boys' bedroom. Henry and Terry had fought back with all the strength their young bodies could muster. Streaks of blood along the floor told the story of a desperate struggle, but they were no match for the savagery of the attack. Min himself, returning home later, was ambushed and killed. His body was discovered tucked beneath a duvet, as though hidden from sight. In one night, 5 lives were destroyed. The silence. That was what struck first responders the most. After so much violence, an absolute silence. No voices, no cries, no sounds of life. Only the heavy stillness of death. Emergency services described the scene as one of the bloodiest in Sydney's history. The walls, the floors, the bedding, all painted in red. Seasoned detectives, hardened by years of violent crime, later admitted that what they saw in that house stayed with them for the rest of their careers. It was not just the brutality, but the calculated method in which the killer struck. The power deliberately cut from outside the home, the front door left unlocked, the attacks delivered swiftly and systematically. Strike Force Nobun, a specialized homicide team, was assigned to the case. Their first task was to determine whether the massacre was random or targeted. Very quickly, it became clear this was no random act. The killer knew the home, the routines, and the fact that Brenda would not be there. Forensic teams moved meticulously through the house. They uncovered 24 bloody shoe prints, all the same size, all pointing to one individual. The pattern revealed movement from room to room, each print a silent witness to the unfolding slaughter. Blood spatter analysis suggested the killer had worn gloves and wielded a blunt weapon. The murder weapon itself was never recovered, but investigators believed it to be a hammer-like object, heavy enough to crush bone, wrapped perhaps in rope to improve grip. The absence of the weapon only deepened the mystery. The sequence of death told its own chilling story. Min and Lily were attacked first, likely while asleep, leaving them no chance to defend themselves. Irene was killed next. The boys, awakened by the noise, tried to fight. Henry suffered 3 crushing blows to the head. Terry, the youngest, may have lingered, wounded and struggling, for nearly 2 hours before receiving the final 6 strikes that ended his life. Asphyxiation was also noted in 4 of the 5 victims, suggesting the killer combined blunt trauma with suffocation to ensure death. It was a massacre marked by rage, yet carried out with cold precision. Suspicion quickly turned toward one man, Robert Xie, Brenda's uncle and Kathy's husband. The same man Henry had been excited to play badminton with that very morning would now become the prime suspect in his murder. Robert Xie, born in China, had migrated to Australia years earlier. Outwardly, he appeared a mild-mannered family man, married to Kathy, respected in his community. But behind closed doors, his life told a different story. He struggled financially, resentful of Min's booming business and the respect it brought him. Min's success stood in stark contrast to Robert's lack of achievements, and jealousy festered. Even more disturbing were the allegations that would later surface, a twisted obsession with his niece, Brenda. Investigators would eventually discover pinhole cameras hidden in her bedroom, evidence of a secret fixation that cast a dark shadow over his motives. The forensic evidence mounted steadily against him. Surveillance cameras at Robert's own home captured him destroying evidence, burning clothing and discarding a shoebox that matched the bloody prints found in the Lin residence. But the most damning proof, the one he could not burn, was on the floor of his own garage. A stain, almost invisible to the naked eye, known as Sample 91. Within it lay the story of that night, the genetic material of 4 of the 5 victims. Prosecutors pieced together a chilling narrative. Robert had drugged his wife Kathy on the night of the murders to ensure she slept undisturbed. Then, armed with his weapon, he slipped out under the cover of darkness, entered the Lin home, and carried out the killings. His motive? A toxic blend of jealousy, greed, and obsession. By eliminating Min, he could erase the source of his resentment. By destroying the family, he could attempt to consolidate control over Brenda, the young girl he lusted after, free from the watchful eyes of her parents and brothers. The community recoiled in horror as news of the evidence broke. The idea that a trusted uncle could annihilate an entire family out of envy and perverse desire was almost too much to bear. But the legal system would prove that truth is often more monstrous than fiction. The case dragged on for years. Trials collapsed, juries were discharged, and appeals multiplied. Robert remained defiant, insisting on his innocence, while his defense team tried to poke holes in the forensic case. Yet piece by piece, the evidence solidified. The shoe prints, the DNA stain, the destruction of evidence caught on his own CCTV, even chilling testimonies from fellow inmates who claim Robert spoke of stealing DNA from funeral homes to plant false evidence, painted a portrait of a man desperate to evade justice. The trials were grueling, some stretching for months, others collapsing under technicalities. But prosecutors never relented. The families of the victims sat through each hearing, their grief raw, their need for justice unshaken. And Brenda, the lone surviving child, carried a burden unimaginable for someone so young. The knowledge that her uncle had destroyed her family, and the fear that justice might never come. Finally, in 2017, 8 long years after the murders, justice was delivered. Robert Xie was convicted of the murders of Min, Lily, Irene, Henry, and Terry. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms with no chance of parole. His appeal in 2018 was dismissed the following year, and in 2019 the Court of Criminal Appeal upheld the conviction, bringing a definitive end to one of the most prolonged and complex legal battles in Australian history. For Brenda, who survived only because she was away that night, the pain was indescribable. She had lost her parents, her brothers, and her aunt, all at the hands of an uncle she once trusted. And yet she endured. With time, she rebuilt her life, carrying the legacy of her family in her resilience and strength. Her survival is both a cruel twist of fate and a symbol of unbroken will. The Lin family murders remain one of Australia's darkest crimes. They remind us that evil often hides closest to home, disguised in the faces of family and trust, neighbors, friends, even family members. Sometimes those who seem the most ordinary conceal the most chilling truths. What do you think? How could someone commit such cruelty against his own family? Was it jealousy, obsession, or something darker still? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to Crimenest, where every week we uncover the darkest, most haunting true crime stories from across Asia and beyond. Until next time, stay safe,